As the Soviet armies poured into Hungary to put down the revolution for freedom and democracy, Imre Nagy was addressing the people before his death at the hands of communists. Nagy had fought and put his soul into creating a free Hungary. Nagy said, "This fight is the fight for freedom by the Hungarian people against the Russian intervention." Later, Nagy was captured and killed by the Soviet troops. It is easy to forget about revolutions like this against tyrants, despicable, corrupted governments. To really find answers, people must study the beginning.
Just as in Czechoslovakia, Poland, and most of Eastern Europe, the years 1945 to 1949 brought gradual, then total, Soviet control in Hungary.
The main causes of the Hungarian Revolution include World War II, Soviet attempts to establish a communist Hungary, and salami tactics from the communist leader Rákosi. Salami tactics, a divide-and-conquer process of threats and alliances used to overcome opposition. With salami tactics, an aggressor can influence and eventually dominate a landscape, typically political, piece by piece. In World War II, Hungary had been attacked by Germany. Hungary was a central war zone with multiple battles taking place in its main cities. The war-torn country was ruined. The city of Budapest had tanks overrunning it and destroyed buildings. The Soviet Union came into Hungary to free them. After the Soviet Union freed Hungary, communist ideals were spread into the small country. After World War II, with freed Hungary, the U.S. had a foreign policy based on containing communism and aiding countries resisting communism through economic and military help. This all led up to Russian control of economic, political, and military power in Eastern European countries. Rákosi picked up communist ideals in World War I and embraced them. Rákosi was an obvious choice for the Hungarian satellite nation of the USSR because he supported Stalin and communism. Rákosi's propaganda was everywhere. The agriculture leader was communist, and since agriculture was such a big industry, the country was quickly populated with communists. The communists took control and banned other political parties. If you weren't a communist, your life was ruined, jobs were taken, and rights revoked. The communist government was put in place and Rákosi was put into power. Immediate reforms took place that ruined the economy. The agriculture budget was cut and state farms were made, creating a drop in exports and capitalistic markets. The state farms grouped together in a commune. Many farmers were forced from the farms and made to move into the cities for work. A famine came and left many dying in the cities. Hungary's resources were depleted by Russia, among others who needed Hungary's food and raw materials to support their ailing economies. Rákosi's reforms made industry a big priority for Hungary. The country wasn't ready to be industrialized. People were forced to work for the machine of communism. Privacy was also taken away. The secret police, the AVO, had files on almost everybody in Hungary. Acting out could bring you and your family death, prison, or torture. Rákosi often boasted of his political success, for he had crushed other parties and made a Stalin-like rule for himself in Hungary. In the end, his salami tactics helped him conquer Hungary. However, Imre Nagy made Hungary a better place. The political and ideological legacy of Imre Nagy revealed heroic leadership as he stood up to the Soviet Union and put Americans' Truman Doctrine to the test.
Imre Nagy is a political hero because he created political policies and reforms that relieved citizens from the communist burden. He stood up against the Soviet Union, he made reforms for the poor, and he built upon the influence of the secret speech, which challenging Rákosi after the Ripple. The secret speech was made by Nikita Khrushchev, leader of the Soviet Union. Khrushchev denounced Stalin, stating, "It is clear that Stalin showed in a whole series of cases his intolerance, his brutality, and his abuse of power." Nagy capitalized on this weakness in Soviet leadership. The speech gave momentum to Hungary's revolution. The time to act was now. Throughout the revolution, there were radio takeovers in Budapest and other towns. Many citizens would go to stations and broadcast pleas to stop shooting. One person was reported to say, "Soviets, stop shooting, avoid bloodshed, put down your guns." During the rebellion, students revolted. Students were the most unhappy because they wanted a better government and more freedom. There were 16 demands created by Hungarian student colleagues. The 16 demands included the immediate withdrawal of Soviet troops, the election of new leaders in the Hungarian Workers' Party by secret ballots, and the government should be reconstituted under the leadership of Comrade Imre Nagy, as well as many more. As blood started to flow, many tanks were brought in, and in Budapest the streets were lined with destruction, distorting the beautiful cities with war scars. Many people took down war memorials, and Soviet red stars were set tumbling down, and Russian flags were set aflame, as well as Soviet books. As the revolution raged on, Nagy decided to pull Hungary out of the Warsaw Pact. Through the rebellion, Imre Nagy continued to show leadership by opposing Rákóczi's ideals and by questioning America's Truman Doctrine. When Hungary fell to communism, Nagy continued to give hope to revolutionaries and questioned the United States Truman Doctrine when the time was right. The Truman Doctrine is the promise from the United States to give aid to countries resisting communism. Nagy felt that the U.S. went back on their foreign policy by not aiding Hungary in the revolution. Nagy had pleaded for military aid from the UN and the U.S., but received no aid.
This is Hungary calling. This is Hungary calling. The last remaining station. Or to the United Nations. Early this morning, the Soviet troops launched a general attack on Hungary. We are requesting you to send us immediate aid in the form of parachute troops over the Trans-Danubian provinces. For the sake of God and freedom, help Hungary!
Nagy denounced Soviet use of force against revolting citizens. On November 2nd, tanks massed around Budapest. Imre Nagy pleaded for quick action. A U.S. ambassador remarked that it is plain as it can be that we cannot ignore such a plea. President Eisenhower agrees to provide supplies to embattled Hungarians, but the Truman Doctrine was not invoked. 2 days later, 200,000 Soviet troops invade Budapest. The United States was too late. Imre Nagy is an ideological hero because he had ideas for the people and fought for Rákóczi through an idea war. During the 1950s, Nagy was a symbol of hope. Even after Nagy was killed and the communist government was back in place, his ideas to help the people stayed in the government and affected the eventual freedom of the country. A hero is someone who used bravery to save others and helped make the world a better place. A hero is someone who also does small but great acts in life. The greatest heroes are those who try to do what they know is right in very difficult circumstances. Imre Nagy and the Hungarian Revolution caused an importance in history throughout this time period. Imre Nagy, as the hero of Hungary, was martyred by the Soviet Union for his non-communist beliefs. On November 4, 1956, he was arrested and taken from power and was taken out of the country for almost 2 years. On June 16, 1958, he was tried and executed for treason in attempting to overthrow the democratic state of order of Hungary. The Hungarian people didn't know of the execution until it was carried out.
Communist world in reaction to the execution last week of Imre Nagy and 3 other leaders of Hungary's freedom fighters of 1956. In Bonn, Hungarian refugees and West Germans, some 400 in all, demonstrate outside the Soviet embassy, at first peaceably, until angry emotions grow too strong. Police move in as a barrage of rocks is loosed.
Now in Hungary, Imre Nagy Day is October 23rd. His memorial statue is located in Budapest, Hungary, as well as the Imre Nagy Memorial House. All this dedicated to Imre Nagy and his heroism against the Soviet Union. After the Hungarian Revolution, the Poles had the guts to fight back. After the heroism and the whole revolution, and Imre Nagy showed that Hungary knew how to stop and rebel against the Soviet Union. Imre Nagy sparked a light of hope in the so dark world of the Soviet Union. First Hungary, now Poland. After the death of Stalin, Khrushchev takes over leadership and delivers a secret speech, leading the Hungarians to test communism, and Poland will follow. In the second half of 1956, Poland had a political change throughout. They called it Polish October. All of Imre Nagy's heroism, protests, and beliefs in the fire against the Soviet Union will finally lead to the fall of communism. Pope John Paul II will visit Poland and meet with the Solidarity leaders in 1979. By 1987, USSR President Gorbachev introduced glasnost and perestroika. Poland will elect Lech Walesa as its leader from the Solidarity Party in 1989. The Berlin Wall will be torn down. Czechoslovakia elects Havel as its president, and communism is defeated in the Velvet Revolution. All of these events in the year of 1989. Germany will unify in 1990. Gorbachev resigns as the president of the USSR, and the Soviet Union will dissolve in 1991. In 1992, President George Bush and Boris Yeltsin, the Russian president, will officially declare an end to the Cold War and the fall of communism. As you can see, Imre Nagy started a spark in Hungary as a hero ready to fight back, but really he started a fire. One day ready to take down the USSR, which he did, as well as taking down communism. A hero is a person in the face of adversity and danger overcomes a challenge, just like Imre Nagy did with the Soviet Union. He overcame that challenge.